And welcome back, everybody, to the Pat Flynn Show. We are joined once again by legendary strength coach, according to Men's Health Magazine, Dan John. And strength coach, indeed, because Dan, I ventured the initial topic for conversation today. It's a theme we've visited a number of times, but I want to revisit again because I think our thought is sort of always in development on this, and that is the idea of standards.
Oh,
Kettlebell standards, strength
well,
standards,
didn't you just
and
send out an email about this?
yeah, I did. I teased that we would be
Oh,
jamming on this. So yeah. I mean, you have a number of articles out where you've sort of laid out a number of standards before, and I feel like at this point, I feel like we revisit this theme every year with some fresh ideas and some new insights.
yeah.
And the way I've thought about it recently, Dan, is I like the idea of sort of having floors and ceilings, right? Like
Mhm.
rather than just like just one thing, like this is it. This is what everyone has to do. Trying to get some sort of minimum threshold, like okay, let's at least try and get to this, right?
Yes.
And then also having a sort of ceiling as well, which I think is important, where we can say, all right, for most people, if you get here, I'm not sure if it's really worth going beyond this. You see what I'm saying?
So let me just add one more, and I'm not trying to one up you here, but the
Oh,
word I
please,
use,
yeah, one up,
the word,
one up all day.
the word I use is gaps. The first thing so I don't get, frankly, I don't get a lot of people who've never lifted weights before, have never seen the thing. I really don't. But what I get a lot is a lot of people with a fair amount of experience who are floundering, and almost universally push, pull, hinge, squat, loaded carry. There's no loaded carries. Even though I read all your work, well, are you doing anything like farmer walks? I don't know how to do them. Like pick up a weight and walk with it. Okay. And then the other one is actual squatting.
Yeah.
The goblet squat to the overhead is where I usually lead them. So before we even get down the road of where should we be, the first thing I'd want to make sure is that you don't have any glaring gaps. So in our world of strength, the gaps generally, and I'll throw in a third one that's become bigger in the last couple of years is
Sure.
a poor hinge, poor. Um, Now I remember being young and people say don't lift don't use your back when you lifted. And what
Right.
they meant was don't turn yourself into a comma
Yeah.
when you lift. But so squat, hinge, loaded carry. Other than that, no big deal. Uh, they don't drink water is not their beverage. They don't get enough sleep. They have no, they're missing some key macronutrient. They have too much sugar. Um, just just big gaps in nutrition, big gaps in recovery, big gaps in the training.
Right.
Once we get past there, then the next thing I usually have to deal with, Patrick, is almost the opposite of maybe most of our listeners would do. I have to talk people off the roof because, Dan, I'm snatching 500, I'm clean and jerking 700. I deadlifted 4,000 the other day, and but my shot, I haven't thrown the shot any farther.
Mm.
Well, how many hours a day you throwing the shot? Oh, I throw the shot about once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You're trying to make the weight room answer the question for the field of play, and that is an issue that is so. Those those are the two issues to kind of emphasize where I see this the most.
Yeah, good. A necessary preamble, right? So let's take a broad picture. Let's do an assessment. Let's see if there's any glaring gaps, right? Okay, all right, you seem to be doing all right in the gym, but your sleep is terrible. What's going on there? Or, all right, like you're getting plenty of cardio in, but look at your diet. Come on, right? So, uh, what you're saying, Dan? Like keep the obvious things obvious, or whatever it is. Or do
The
the
phrase
obvious.
I use is embrace the
Embrace the obvious. That's it. So embrace it, which is not an easy thing to do, right? Because
no.
we all get in this habit of rationalizing. Like we kind of know that we have this big issue going on, but we're really good at like putting intentional blinders on, right? So we like need somebody like Dan to come around and knock those blinders off and like force us to look at the thing which we know is there, but we keep intentionally looking away from, right?
Yeah, and just for total honesty, I make the same mistakes. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, guilty over here too, of course.
I'm shocked sometimes. It's like, how do you know this information and completely miss it anyway?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which goes to show, I was having a conversation with a gentle listener through email, and we were talking a little bit about this, that it does strike me that lack of information is not our biggest issue in the world these days, right? It's lack of implementation and almost too much information, right? And I'm still quite convinced that if you took your average American and you put them down with the proverbial gun to head and like, what does a healthy diet look like? What do you need to do to just become generally healthy? I think most average people are probably going to get at least a C+ on that quiz, right? Right.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think it's a lack of just information and knowledge. I really don't. It's implementation that is the primary issue here, right?
Yeah, I had someone push back one time on seatbelts. And I thought to myself, I'm not going to deal with the 1 person in 7 billion that's going to fight me on seatbelts.
Right.
I basically, gentle listener, basically I make a point is don't smoke and wear your seatbelt. There's your basic life insurance policy.
Right. Irish has a good comment here. It says, I'd say it's a lack of information and an overwhelming amount of data. Yeah. So we could swap in information with like knowledge or something like that. I'm thinking of information in the way that I think you're thinking about data here, right? Is we have all this information or data coming in at people, this diet, that diet, this exercise program, that exercise program. And there is a problem, a definite, and this is something I want to acknowledge fully, right? Because it's something I struggled with when I was first starting out trying to get, in better shape myself, as I went into my basement, right? Where I knew my mom kept all of those diet books, right? Through her whole life, right? The whole collection, every fad diet book. So immediately I was presented with an enormous amount of information or data, but I had no way of knowing, well, where do I begin, right? How do I even begin to discern what of this I should implement in my life? And it was only through a process of trial and error and finding many good coaches that I was able to eventually see that there were core commonalities that were grounded in good research and perennial wisdom. And it was those core commonalities that were essential to success, right? So it wasn't necessarily paleo or keto, but it was things like managing caloric intake, eating foods that were predominantly close to nature, not highly processed, stuff like that. These were the commonalities that seemed to be found in anybody who had success, regardless of the differences, right? That was not an insight I had immediately, right? That took time to get there, right? But
and the listener who posted that, and sometimes I'll get a thing like that when I'm doing like a podcast, and I always want to push back first when I read that, because knowledge is the gift of education, right? Knowledge, and there's nothing worse, nothing more dangerous than someone who first gets a degree, and they have all the knowledge, but they don't have, and I'm going to use the word wisdom, and I think we both know what the word wisdom means. And I think all the listeners know what wisdom means. But wisdom and knowledge are not the same thing. And sometimes wisdom is holding your tongue when you know what to say, because it's not yet time. When someone's grieving and you decide to step in and tell them what's happening, exactly what's happening to the dearly beloved lost, and you decide to go through a line by line review of what's happening to them right now, whether it's the embalming process, the burning process, the heaven, hell, whatever, nirvana, whatever. Sometimes wisdom is just shutting up. And I think one of the hardest things as a strength coach is when I butt heads against knowledge daily.
Yeah. Well, and certainly knowledge is an analogous term. It comes in many different ways. A podcast the other day, and my guest was sort of lamenting about how many people these days might know a lot about a horse from their biology textbook, but they never ridden one, right?
God, that's a great line.
Right. So like, who knows more about the horse? The girl that grew up with horses, trained them, rode them, fed them, or the one that could tell you all the biological details of the horse, right? And clearly they're both forms of knowledge, right? But they're also not the same thing either. So
yeah, I get it. My biggest issues are from out and out liars in our industry, and I'm not going to mention names, but fortunately they seem to be disappearing a little bit. But and then the other one is from in fact, I leave tomorrow, by the way, for St. Mary's. Hello, England. I'll see you tomorrow. Um, Many of my students, when I work with them, they are so full of knowledge, and they've always trained in really high-end elite gyms. And I just want to just hug them and say, you don't know what it's like out there. When you're going to get a job at a place that has, one broken barbell, a machine that was used in 1964, and a yoga mat, and you're going to have 85 athletes to train.
Right. Yeah. And that will teach you. I often say, like, look, the formal education that I got, all the certifications, the textbooks, definitely valuable. Don't get me wrong. But I think the most valuable aspects for me as a coach was, especially in college, when I was teaching really countless classes throughout the week. And oftentimes I was thrown into situations like when I was teaching at the YMCA, where
Right.
I'd have, a 16-year-old lacrosse player and 76-year-old who thought she came into a step aerobics class, and now she's in my kettlebell class, right? But my textbooks did not prepare me for this, right? Now I have to really be creative, right? And you learn things from that. I'll use a Mark Twain line, right? You learn something by swinging a cat by its tail that you can't learn in any other way, right? Right. There's experiences in life like that where that's the only way you can learn something like that, right? But you often get an invaluable lesson from that, even if it's that I should never swing a cat by its tail again, right?
Utah made the national news this morning. They've opened up these new places called Scales and Fins or something like that. These are places with snakes, and the kids were on a field trip, and the trainer, the crocodile or alligator, decided to bite the trainer's hand in front of all the little kids. So Utah made national news today. I know a lot about alligators, and I know enough to know I don't want to hand feed an alligator.
Which is important, right? And we talked about this before. If you can learn from somebody else's hard experience,
right,
please try to do so, right?
So for me, wisdom, gentle listener, is both sides of this narrow plank. Mm-hmm. It is having that well of information that I have from my learning and my experience. And it's also that massive amount of space on the other side where I learn from other people's experiences.
Right on.
And I think, it's funny because we're talking about standards this morning, but one of the first thing you have to do is make sure. So after gaps, we now talk about standards. We got to make sure the standards are appropriate to the people we're working with.
Yes. So let's talk about that, if you wouldn't mind, Dan. And maybe we can focus in on kettlebells, but if we want to branch out further, we can. So yeah, push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, floor, ceiling. Where are your thoughts on this?
Well, already, I see somebody ask me what's the standard for a suitcase carry. And the first standard is, have you ever done one? Hell, if you can't figure out how heavy a suitcase carry is, I can't help you. This isn't something I can do in my chair. Let me describe a suitcase carry. You got to pick up some damn weights and go. And if it's too heavy, you'll waddle. If it's too light, there's nothing there. The first level standards, I think, in the kettlebell world are, can you clearly hinge and clearly squat? Can you show me a hinge versus a squat? One of the most popular videos I've ever had was just having Mitch and Sarge standing on, let's see, one of them was standing with their toes on a weight doing a hinge, and the other was standing with their heels on a weight doing a squat. And if you can't discern between that, a hinge and a squat, I don't want you using kettlebells.
Yeah. So first standard is clear movement quality and distinctions in movement patterns. Hinge and squat being the sort of fundamental lower body one for Dan.
Mm-hmm. And then if I could, I'm not necessarily going to have you do a Turkish get up first, but I love that exercise called the Turkish get down press, where I have you do a press here and then get in the cross country ski position, do a press, get in the lunge position, do a press, windshield wiper the leg and do a press. Bring the hand to the ground, do that weird kneeling windmill bench press.
Right, yeah.
Swing the leg underneath, do the tall sit press, get the elbow, do a press, lie on your back, do a press, which is a floor press.
Yep.
Put both hands on it, lay to the ground. It's in a video, folks. Don't worry about it.
But what you just described just is a reverse get up, but pressing it at every stage, essentially.
At every stage.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the reason I like something that simple, and by the way, you can do it with a piece of paper. It doesn't matter. But if your shoulder can't go through all those different press movements, then maybe we shouldn't be doing something. If you can't press left and right in all those different angles, let's go play around with the shoulder or whatever is in the system that's not making it work.
Mm-hmm.
When I do that kneeling windmill bent press, I don't get out of my own way because that's what highlights all my upper body injuries is that position there.
Right.
Like the other day I was doing an interview with a guy named Gregory from Germany, and he told me that another kettlebell instructor won't listen to my work because I've had surgeries, and why would you listen to anybody who's ever been injured? And this kettlebell expert, it kind of shocked me to hear that statement because I do have injuries and I have to work around them, but here's the interesting thing, Patrick. Next week I'll have a different set of injuries and I'll have to work around them because life
life is injury, my friends. Just what it is. One injury after another until you're dead.
And I hate to tell this fitness expert, but the reason my shoulders are jacked up right now is because we got hit by 2 massive storms. I had a massive tree limb come down and really hurt the back of my house. I had to spend $2,000 getting another tree pruned. My gate got broken. My storm door got broken. We have a leak in the roof. And I spent the better part of 30 to 40 hours picking up and moving limbs and sawing. So my shoulder injuries right now are caused by 2 back-to-back monsoon freak desert storms. Desert storm. Sad to say that on this particular day. So in other words, the next time I have tree limb issues, I should just send my 2 daughters out there with chainsaws and my grandchildren and just say, you guys take care of it. I'm a fitness professional.
Yeah. And I'm getting the echo. Is that on me or you're in?
You're good, yeah.
Sorry. This is weird. I hear myself echoing back. Sorry for the. Okay, it's gone. Yeah. No. So yeah, obviously, Dan, because you have to make sure that you're impeccable on Instagram, right? So you send your kids to do the work. So that's very smart. That's a good.
Here, Danny and Joe. Here's chainsaws. Go take care of this. And
I can't be stiff on my next Instagram video because then
I'll take pictures of my boobs and butt and get more right. followers on Instagram.
Yeah, I have always. Dan, one of the things that I appreciate about our conversations is, you're not just a lifelong lifter. You have a history of being a lifelong athlete as well. And anybody who's ever done anything with their body in physical competition knows that that's just part of the deal. You're just gonna get banged up. And so the question isn't to find people who are without injuries, because to find somebody without injuries is just to find. I don't know who that is, right? Who is that? It's just to find somebody who has never done anything, right? The question is, what wisdom can I get from this person who has had injuries?
Yeah, well, if you find the person without sin, they get to cast the first stone. Right, if you find the person without injuries, I'm not sure. Frankly, I'm not sure I want to be. If you've never been injured, and this is, again, it's like what Billy Graham said. If you ever find the perfect church, join it. It won't be perfect anymore. I feel that way about it. There are no perfect programs. There's no perfect diet. Or we're going to talk about standards with some specific numbers in a moment. But, there is nothing perfect. It always, I talked about this a while ago. Do you mind if I just
Yeah, go off. We'll come back to standards in a minute. Yep.
I spent probably 2 years figuring out whether high school girls here in the United States should have a 70 or a 75-pound military press standard. And I vacillated constantly. In fact, people would even ask me, why are you so worried about it? And it's like, because it's the strangest thing. If I go to 75, I lose half the female population on my standards. If I stick at 70, I feel it's too light.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at my numbers, you'll see both 70 and 75 in there, as I argued inside my own head for 2 years. How valuable is that standard? Well, it's not very valuable at all. It's just the bare minimum, I think, to be able to compete at the high school level here in where I live in the United States in high school. And for those of you listening, it's not a very heavy standard. It's 30. I'm basically arguing, no, not even 30. 27 to 29 kilos, 28 kilos. It's no, that's not right. I apologize, folks. It's been a rough morning already. Yeah, it would have been like 28 kilos. Okay. And with both hands. But that's the thing. If you decide to have a fixed standard, the other issue is the reality of it. You know, I have this standard. I have these numbers, Patrick, that I put together and I piece together and I think about a long time. And then we put them out there and they fail. The second you go off of the Dan John reservation, the standards don't work in many cases.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Because you're not teaching the clean as I'm teaching the clean over a 4-year period, taking it serious every day of the week. But you know, your assistant coaches, Patrick, don't like the clean, and instead they teach their athletes to do more curls and reverse curls.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the standard fails instantly.
Yeah. By the way, Andrew, we do see your comments. He's saying, "Do you see these comments?" And I'm saying, "I do." So just yes.
Wait, Andrew, no, I don't see them.
So Dan, so this is why I like ranges, right? And sort of floor and ceiling. Because like you, for a while, I sort of obsessed over like, can we find this great, perfect standard sweet spot? And I just don't think it exists, frankly, right? But I think we can say, okay, something like this generally is probably a good baseline. And something like this is probably like a decent ceiling that like once you reach this, you can say, yeah, strong enough. Let me go focus on other things. So off the top of your head, Dan, if you were just to kind of go through maybe the push, pull, hinge, squat, carry of the kettlebell techniques, if you were to give us some general, general ranges, understanding that the gentle listeners are going to be as charitable as possible in their interpretations of what you prescribe, as they always are, right, on the internet.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be kettlebells, Dan. You can kind of throw out what you think.
So what I'm doing is
I'm looking, and we're looking for the generalist here. We're not looking for the hyper specialist or something like that, but the generalist.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to use my classic numbers. Okay, if that's okay with you. All right.
Fine by me. Mm-hmm.
So basically, let's go. We're going to talk about men. I would say this is if you're a male, you should be able to do proper form in the goblet squat. If you're female, you should do proper form in the goblet squat. Okay. In the push movements, I think if you're male, 10 push-ups is something I think you should be able to do. Interesting though, with females, I would say 1 push-up for females. Okay.
And we're talking floors at this point.
Yes. For hinges, I think a male should be able to show the hinge movement from various positions. I like having, on your knees, you do a hinge. Standing with your toes on some kind of lift, do a hinge. And then and females probably the same. For pull, I would like you to be able to, maybe on a suspension trainer of some kind, be able to hold yourself. Whatever you want to call this position. Yeah, I call it bat wing. But whatever.
Batwing position, yeah.
All right.
You have an article on the Batwing. Was that on T Nation?
Oh yeah. I've got a million articles on and but the thing is, with once I started using suspension trainers, TRXs, I got away from the Batwing with kettlebells because it's just so much easier to do it the way we were doing it.
Sure.
Okay. I think for men, once you can double front squat. So 2 32 kilo bells for 10, you've pretty much maxed out the kettlebell world in the squat. Okay. Right. Mm-hmm. When you can double
now we're sealing.
Yeah. Once you can double kettlebell press the 32s for 5s. Yeah. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say you're maxed out, but you're there. And then I have the double kettlebell clean the 32s for 10. I said clean the 32s for 10. And the reason I like that is because people can swing double 32s, but it's much harder to clean double 32s. Does it make sense? You follow?
It does.
And then pulls, really once you get above 10 pull-ups, I think you're about there. For females, I would say double 16s for 10 in the squat, double 16s for 5 in the press, and then again double 16s in the clean for 10s, and then I would love it if a woman could do, and this is something I'm learning, Pat. Women who do all your answers, all your dreams come true if you do pull-ups. I mean, one of my top trainees, her goal at 52 is to do 10 strict pull-ups.
Awesome.
And when you see her, you instantly say, I'm going to do pull-ups the rest of my life too, because she looks so good.
Yeah, well, pull-ups are one of those things that you kind of have to have a number of ducks in a row to be able to do. Like, you can't just have pure brute strength. Like, you kind of can, but you also sort of have to have body composition figured out a bit. You have to be somewhat well-rounded to be, pretty decent at pull-ups. So I think in that sense, like, getting good at pull-ups sort of forces you to be more of a generalist in various ways.
Well,
whereas like a kettlebell military press, you could get stronger at that and a whole lot fatter, right?
That's
not easy with pull-ups, right? To just keep getting stronger at pull-ups as you're getting fatter.
Yeah, and back in the day, there, and I talk about this in my new course, but if to me, I think the two great body composition movements for gaining mass in a perfect world would be the dip and the high rep back squat. There's something magical about the dip. And by the way, my friend Brian says the same is true about the handstand push-up, the handstand press-up, push-up. Yeah. Both of those exercises just seem to really be good for hypertrophy. But again, I think I think the pull-up, like you say, has that little added benefit of, if you decide to go on a high carb diet, let's just call it, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, you will notice an impact on your pull-ups. If you decide to focus hard on pull-ups and body weight reduction, you get a win-win. So I like where your head's at there.
Yeah, very good. Those are challenging but reasonable standards, which I think is key here.
Yeah.
And they're good markers to say, okay, I've done this, I've checked this box. I maybe could go a little bit further if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But it's good to have some threshold where you can say strong enough is strong enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, when we were talking about it's called the RKC2 now. It's the Strong First 2. It's all basically the same. And when we were talking about standards, I said, well, there is a standard. It's easy. You have to press half body weight, the beast. I would say most men should press the beast, and do the 200 snatches in 10 minutes Secret Service test with the 24 for men. And my point was, and that's it. You have a half an hour on day one. We're going to have a half an hour period. Okay. Everyone introduces themselves. Everyone does all their dance and show. We're going to have a press area and a snatch area. Go. You have a half an hour to do both. And, I got pushback on that. And so instead, when I do an RKC2, and I've got one coming up, I think I have to judge. It's just basically a decathlon of judging for me. It's all I do is, I am constantly sitting here with a piece of paper, looking up, checking boxes. But to me, if you can press the beast and snatch the 24 200 times in 10 minutes, you've basically pushed the kettlebell as far as you need to ever push it.
Right.
And so that, and I'm not, and here's the thing.
And the beast is a high standard. I can't press the beast.
Yeah. And
I'm a relatively I don't know if I could do it on the spot right now, but I've done the 200 rep snatch test.
Well, Again, I've done both. I don't know if I can don't know if I can roll into my gym right now and do it.
Right.
Here's the second part. I'm not going to do it either because
that ain't on the agenda for today.
That is something I am not going on an international flight after that. So the issue you always run into, it's like we used to talk about with discus throwers. If you can snatch 250 pounds, 115 kilos, and you can clean 300, basically 140 kilos, you are strong enough to be an international level thrower. Well, the problem is it's very easy for a thrower to go from a 300-pound clean to a 350-pound clean. It's much harder for a thrower to go from throwing the discus 180 to throwing 190. But we're talking about a discus thrower, and a 190-foot discus thrower throws farther than 180. And a 200-foot discus thrower is in that rare air. Okay?
Yeah.
And so I say something like that, and it's so obvious to me when I say it out loud, but people miss that basic point, I think, a lot.
Yeah, excellent. Gentle listeners, we shall be turning to questions here presently. So please, if you haven't already,
and hold on real quick. I will post it's ancient. And how do I post on here?
I don't know if you have the privileges, Dan. If you put it in the private chat, I can repost it in the public chat.
Oh, yeah. So okay. So
I would give you the privileges, but I don't know why.
I don't want them. Maybe I don't want. Okay. So there is my standards, folks. Wow, that's all the way back in 2013.
All right. Let me, I will put this in the public chat so everyone can have the link.
I don't know. And by the way, I'm not married or funny. I'm not connected to hip to those standards. Those are just my attempt to answer this question. Okay.
Gives a good general working framework. So, okay. Yeah. Gentle listener, if you haven't already, please do like and share the show. It really helps us out. And now would be the time to send in your questions.
So here's something, I'm looking at the questions here as I pop back, and Alex Y asks, how would you recommend to learn kettlebell technique? Well, again, and then he has, how crucial is perfect technique? Well, I don't believe in perfect, but how crucial is excellent technique? It's the key. I mean, I don't want to hear about it. And Alex, both Patrick and I have massive resources online about this. My YouTube account, I have a whole bunch, or just, there's a much longer one on my my site. But it's really important. Right. You don't see many people at winning the Olympics with crappy technique in anything. I haven't seen it. Right. I don't. There's an event in swimming called the freestyle, but nobody doggy paddles. Wow, write that down. That's good.
So Dan, let me ask you this, right? Because it's true. We both have tons of tutorials on all the kettlebell techniques, and people can go through a year's worth of YouTube material. They can sign up for your very excellent Dan John University, and all that is, I think, going to be highly beneficial for somebody.
Oh, and I have one other thing. I think it's useless. The more and more time I spend online, it brings us back to our original thing about knowledge versus wisdom. Watching. Let me show you how people watch my YouTube videos. And then they scroll forward.
Well, this brings me to my next point, right? Is like the sort of communication there is just in one direction, right? They're watching our videos, and some people will understand what's being taught and pick stuff up, but they're not getting feedback from us. So what I'm asking you is, when and how often should people actually get in person with a coach and make sure that their feedback is subjected to actual criticism from a coach, so they have the two-way communication channels, right? Like, so I obviously I think it's valuable. All other things equal, you're better off watching the tutorials and learning than not. But at the same time, I still think that there's just such an enormous gap between that and actually being in person, say with Dan John at a workshop, getting personal coaching.
It is. I mean, it's a have to have, and I get it. And we're going to have 1,000 reasons why people can't do it. And I appreciate every one of those 1,000 reasons, but there comes a time. Now, a lot of us are self-taught. Marty Gallagher and I have this funny conversation about how both of us learned both the Olympic lifts and, in my case, the discus throw from pictures in magazines. And when I went to my first, when I first met, pardon me, Dick Notmeyer, I knew a whole bunch of stuff, but I had no ability to Olympic lift. And when it took me several track meets before I found somebody that I could talk to about the turn, that I actually got better at it. But here's the thing. So I guess what I'm saying this, pardon me about this. It's okay to practice on your own. It's okay to try to listen to what I do, pause the video, jump over to your kettlebell pot, jump over to your door, your wall, the floor, and try it. And I think that's going to really build you up, that academic struggle that your mind is going through. And then what's going to happen is Patrick or Alex or Danny or somebody's going to go, is going to say, Cucamonga, and everything's going to get better. But so you need both.
Yeah, and if you are going to, there's that echo again. Weird. I'm going to ignore it. If you are going to watch videos, at least film videos of yourself and compare and contrast, right? So don't just watch videos and assume that you're doing exactly the technique as Dan is doing it or I'm doing it. Film yourself and get that sort of third person perspective, and then watch the video and then watch your video. That will be, having some type of review process like that, to me, is utterly critical. I mean, it's critical for any other skill, writing, music, right? Like, you often just don't hear the mistakes you're making as you're playing, but you record yourself and then you listen back and you're like, how could anybody play so terribly, right? Same thing with human movement. You often don't realize how much of an orangutan you look like, right? Until you finally put yourself on camera. And of course, it's going to be utterly humiliating the first time you do it. Nobody likes to watch themselves move, in the same sense that nobody likes to listen to themselves on a podcast, except for maybe Morgan Freeman. I can't imagine that he's ever been disappointed by the sound of his own voice. But everybody else, right, typically finds everything about themselves really annoying. But you just have to deal with that, right? And that's you need some type of critical self-review process when you're not actively with another coach. And
if you don't mind, the worst offenders are public figures in this. Jillian Michaels, when kettlebells came out, she's on that horribly named show, the most offensive title in the history of TV, which is high praise. Biggest Loser, which is just so offensive. But she came out with her own little kettlebell video when kettlebells, and every single part of it is just horrible. It's not just bad, it's horrible. Mm-hmm. And then every so often on Instagram, I get tagged by some fitness ninny. And I love I'm doing the 10,000 swing challenge. And of course I go in there and rip on their technique as a public comment, because I'm what's the phrase?
If they tag you though.
You tag me. Yeah. Tag me. I'm giving you some love. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Jillian Michaels, I haven't seen her stuff in a while, but I remember because people tag me in her stuff, or they did for a while, just being kind of amazed, right? Because you would think if somebody didn't have any sort of kettlebell instruction, like, they might just by accident get some things right, but it seems like she didn't even have chance in her favor in a lot of respects. Like, somehow found the way to do like everything completely the opposite way that you should be doing something. So
yeah, and I and the problem with these Hollywood types, and I've actually had a chance to meet several now, these Hollywood personal trainer types,
the infomercial trainers,
is that they're just trying so hard to
well, let's be honest, so few of them, I can't prove this, but from the ones that I know personally, or that I know people who know them, so few of them are actually doing the thing that they sell, right? Like the super jacked dude on the infomercial commercial who's selling you some like pee-wee bodyweight training program, that isn't his training program. I'm sorry to break it to you, right? Like, that dude is deadlifting, he's curling. Right? He isn't just doing bands at home and push-ups. That's just not what he's doing, right? Uh-huh.
If you remember the criticism of Beyond Bodybuilding, Pavel's book, they hired a Hollywood model to do the, and it looked, I mean, the pictures were great. I mean, it looked good, but it was clear that, and when I work with that certain magazine that calls me a legend, and I met the models that were. I always thought they were just weak as kittens, and I met these guys, and they're 5'4", 3% body fat, and when they're lifting 25 pounds, it is a heavy load for them. They look good in photos, and a lot of our personal trainers look good in photos. Oh, I had another story for it, but we'll
That's okay. Andrew has a question.
Oh, good for Andrew.
He says, and we can see you, Andrew. We can. He says, I've had some time off from training, and now my kettlebells feel heavier than before. Any thoughts on getting back? Well, I'm sure we've all been there.
Patrick, you answer this. I'm gonna get some more coffee.
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, it's the use it or lose it principle, right? If we're not practicing a skill, it is always slipping away. Now, some skills are stickier than others, right? Like some things deteriorate more quickly than others. Other skills are pretty sticky. Like we think of like riding a bike. Once we get that skill down, like we can go kind of like for years and still be able to hop on a bike. We'll be a little bit rusty, of course. Strength can in some ways be a sticky skill, but obviously if you're like really high level with your strength, the higher level you are in something, like the more frequently you have to practice it to maintain it, right? And that's certainly true with strength, right? So I think it's pretty easy to keep like a sticky amount of sort of generalist strength. Obviously, if you take a couple of weeks off, it's just going to slip. That's just a fact of life. And my advice is you just get back at it, right? There's no other way to it. You accept like this is just what it is. I haven't practiced for a while. I'm going to be a little bit rusty. But if I, 4 to 6 weeks from now, get on a good program, you'll probably have everything back that you lost and more from a generalist perspective. Like I know that with my guitar. I recorded a bunch of music a couple months ago. I haven't really played for about seriously or intensely for about a month. So I know when I go to record more music, I'm going to need about a month to just get my chops back up to where they need to be. And I just accept that, right? Like I'm going to need about a month to knock the rust off of just good practicing because I haven't been practicing this intensely. And then I'll be able to start recording again. And I think you just need to build that into your mindset, because if you don't, then you're going to be disappointed. Then you're going to get depressed. Then you're going to start low, I've lost everything. My life is worthless. And then and that's just not the mindset you want to be. You just want to be reasonable, realistic. This is just how life and skill development is. You take some time off, things get rusty, no big deal. You practice, you get it back, and you get on with it, right?
Yeah, it's interesting you said the thing. It's a bit of a cliche, but people say it's like riding a bike. But it's interesting, Patrick, and if you take the 3 triathlon events and you say strength training is like riding a bike, I usually say, well, that's true. And that's because it's such a great cliche. We all know what that means. But if you haven't swum in a while, you haven't gone swimming in a while, and you jump into a pool, you remember how to swim. But very quickly, as you go across, you're like, so for me, I wish we could change the axiom to it's like swimming. Because swimming, there's that moment you jump into a lake and I haven't been in, and then all of a sudden you look for the closest place to put your hand back up on. So weightlifting is more like swimming, or even like running. I mean, in a way, if you haven't run in 15, 20 years and you decide to go for a 10-mile run, you'll notice it you'll be able to see your house still, right, when you decide that this was a bad idea. You might not be off your driveway. So I agree with you. The thing I like about swimming is the fact that you can die very quickly, and your body, all of a sudden, your mind, so you got 2 parts of your brain. The one part's going, oh, I remember how to swim. Let's do this again. And the other part's like, yeah, of course we remember how to swim. This is all true. Let's get a hand on something real quick and have this conversation safely on the side of the pool or whatever. Excuse me.
Yes. Excellent. No, fully in agreement with you, Dan. Very good. Michael has a question. He says, on the whole knowledge. Oh wait, no, there was one he had before.
Well, I like this.
Well, this is a good question. So we'll just take this one first. He says, in the whole knowledge experience continuum of medicine, we have something called, I do not know what that word is in Danish, but it looks like a cool word. Dan, maybe you can take a stab at that. But it means learning from the master, application of knowledge under the mentorship of experience. How valuable mentorships are. I feel like this is something that's definitely been lost in many aspects of our culture, especially for young people. Where are the mentorships for younger people? I mean, mentorships in my life were the most valuable things. I mean, martial arts, music, it was those mentorships where I learned more than in my actual like AP music theory class in high school, right? I learned more from the mentorship of my guitar instructor by far than I ever did in the actual classroom in a formal setting.
Yeah. My daughter, Kelly, by the way, who's driving off to school an hour or so ago. My grandchildren start school tomorrow. She is a mentor to a new teacher on the campus. And it's funny because Kelly has gotten used to the idea that there's no such thing as a mentee. Mentor was the instructor of Telemachus. And I always tell Kelly, always remember that. Always, mentor is a capitalized letter. It is a proper noun for a person named mentor. And I said, Kelly, I want you to be such a good teacher that 4,000 years from now, we still refer to a great teacher as a Kelly, you know. And I'm a big fan of mentoring, obviously. And really, I think, Michael or Mikhail, one of the things I think that you bring up so correctly here is that this idea that internet learning has great value, and I'm a big fan of it. Obviously, I do a ton of it. At the same time, there is also that need to be grabbed by the collar and drug through the rest of the learning process. And honestly, my assistant coaches have told me that one of the great lessons they learned from me is this position here. I don't know, the thing's in the way, but my daughters make fun of it where I fold my arms and I go like this and I don't say anything. Some of my best coaching is not coaching. I let my athletes flounder and fail in public.
Right. And that's key, right? A good coach needs to learn when to intervene and when not to intervene, right? There's almost nothing worse than the coach that doesn't actually let anybody practice anything. Doesn't let anybody make a mess, because you can learn. Yeah, it's that balance, right? You got to let people make a mess, because there's not only enjoyment in the mess, but wisdom to be had when somebody makes a mess. But at the same time, you can't let somebody just make too much of a mess, right? So
exactly. Well, I mean, we go to early in the years, we always go to a track meet where I know that the weather's going to, in Utah, I always tell my athletes, you got to prepare for 3 different weather systems: snow, rain, and scalding hot, and you have to prepare for all 3. You have to be ready for all 3. Mm-hmm. And I'll go to, and we'll be at a track meet and the discus will start, and little Julia will say, my discus is wet. And I say, do you remember that checklist I gave you? And it says, bring a towel. Yeah. Did you bring a towel? No. Coach, can you get me a towel? Wiggle my nose. Alora Towello, No, I don't walk around with a towel in my back pocket. And they have to throw a slick discus, and it's here's the funny thing. They bring towels the rest of their career to everything.
Right. Yeah. They learn from that mess. And sometimes that is the hard experience. Sometimes the best teacher. Here's Michael's other question. He says, when progressing strength with kettlebells, is there a value to, instead of increasing reps, progressing the exercise difficulty, for example, from a one-arm military press to a half kneeling one-arm military press?
And I would even go farther than that, Mikhail. I have people with the same bell press standing with one foot off the ground. So right hand presses with left foot off the ground. One foot. Right hand presses with the right foot off the ground, which is miles tougher than you'd think. Mm-hmm. I'm a big believer in that. I want to tell you where all this is, and I can't remember. I don't know if it's in I have a new free course on my website called Fitness Over the Lifetime. It might be in there. Shoot, I just wrote this. It could be in my new Easy Strength class course. Darn it. I apologize, but yeah, I agree 100%. In fact, if all you have is a 24 kilo bell and you've mastered it standing, you drop to one knee. You on the right hand, you do left knee down, you do right knee down, you do both knee down, You stand up, you pick up a foot, you pick up a foot, you flip it, and you do it waiter press style, where you're holding the ball here. You do it bottoms up, where you're holding the handle. Absolutely. I think there's great value to it. In fact, as all of us know, there comes a point where progressing in reps doesn't really have a lot of value anymore, and it's got to be changed around. Yeah.
Pietro has a question, which I wanted to address anyways, is sort of, when you begin to modify standards. Pietro's question is, do you have standards for adults over 40? So obviously the general recommendations we gave
what?
General, yeah.
I want to quote Pat Flynn. The plateau is the new PR. And that is,
I like that.
Yeah, that for me, Pietro, is that what I tried to do in my career is I tried to keep the standards that I was at 19 for as long as I could. So when I was at 19, I snatched, I don't know, I think it was like 110, and I clean and jerk like 145. Okay. So I tried to stay at those two standards as long as I could. And I was able to snatch, that's 242 and 319. I tried, so in my late 50s, I could still clean and jerk 319 and snatch right around 242, 110. And then, and honestly, the last decade hit me. These last, since about age 55 to now, I have seen a strong, startling decline in my Olympic lift numbers, which is fine. Yeah, sure. But so what I'm trying to do now is hold on to that plateau as long as I can. So, for example, if I say that you should be able to clean 32 kilos for 10, and just for that, and you're over 40, well, find a different number, but still try to maybe the 16s for 10. It doesn't matter. But the idea that you're still plugging away, you're still training, you're still trying to do certain numbers, you're trying to hang in there as long as you can. If you're at the Sleepless for Seattle numbers, which Patrick, I think, shared, right?
It's in the links, in the comments.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mm-hmm.
You'll see that there's nothing magical about any of the standards. Yesterday I did a whole bunch of overhead squats just to see, could I still do 10 overhead squats? The weight I had on the bar was 50 kilos. I mean, that's nothing, but I was just trying to see if I could still do 10. I'm playing around with the numbers. That's all.
Yeah, cool. Next question comes from Chef. It says, any tips for the bottom position of one arm swing exercises, swings, cleans, snatches for keeping the CSZ alignment?
Yeah. Okay. Chin, sternum, zipper. I like to see, Patrick, I like to see those in a straight line.
Yep.
So if you're doing a one arm swing and you're
getting all twisty.
I don't like people getting twisty. Yeah. The easiest way, Chef, is to, on a one arm swing, I got the weight in this hand. When you're out at that plank position, touch the hand. As you come to that position, you touch the hand at the top. That's the easiest way for most people. Since I found that very few people I work with can maintain that position, I don't do any one-handed stuff at all. So, and you can disagree. And by the way, gentle listeners, I mean, I saw a question that's just going to drive me crazy anyway. But I don't know what's going on in your background, but someone's having fun.
Oh, is it picking up the circus that is upstairs right now?
Yeah. But I mean, people disagree with me about this one arm work, and it's like, so, I've even emailed them. I go, what is your qualifications? I've been a personal trainer now for a year. It's like, oh, screw you. I mean, Jesus. I mean, you've one-on-one clients. If you're one-on-one clients, you might never, and you just don't have enough volume of clients to see the problems with some of the stuff you teach. Mm-hmm. Phil Maffetone in his new book, I mean, he really argues strongly against the push-up. And, I'm in a place in my career where if you say, yeah, we don't do push-ups anymore, I'd be like, yeah, I can see why. A push-up done correctly is a fine little exercise. Done poorly, it's a horrible exercise. Let's hope. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, those are good points, Stan. Ed the Worst says, morning from British Columbia, Canada. When it comes to purchasing cast iron versus competition style kettlebells, do you care which one your students get, or does it not matter?
Well, I hate the competition style ones. So you can, first off, it's really hard to do a goblet squat with them with that vertical handle.
Right.
They're all the same size, which is great, but I don't like that because I can't and then of course I get it. You paint the one pink and the other one's blue, which is so sexist, and we need to move on from that, folks. I don't like the competition mostly because when you do doubles, the steel bounces. So as you throw them back for a double clean, the loads bounce and you can feel them bounce. They're also extremely expensive, much more expensive. Again, this is my opinion, and
well,
it's
I
okay
mean,
to disagree.
the thing that people forget, like competition style kettlebells are made for people who compete in gear your voice sport, right? So the idea there is that the dimensions stay the same, so your technique can stay the same for the highly specialized operation you're supposed to be performing. So it makes sense for that. But since people, the vast majority of people who are just training with kettlebells to be generalists, aren't trying to be hyper specialists in kettlebell lifting, I don't think it makes sense to use the competition style kettlebells for most people most of the time. You're just going to be better off with the cast iron style. So I have a few competition kettlebells. I use them occasionally, go around. So I think it's fine. But yeah, I'm with you there.
When Emily and I went down to Erete Throws Nation's workshop, they wanted us to bring discs down. Well, I now, with the way the TSA is, bringing a disc on a flight is a pain in the ass. A discus, okay? So I bought 2 very inexpensive rubber discs and sent them to the hotel I was staying at. So Emily and I showed up with these very cheap rubber discs, and then when we left, I donated them to the locals, to the guys who would live there. And someone says, "Well, isn't that a waste of money?" Well, no, I would never compete with a rubber discus, but in a 2-day hands-on clinic, it was fine. So Patrick, your point is important. I have competition discs that I throw. My one cost almost $400. It's a $400 discus, okay? The one I used at this clinic cost me about $9. They're both discs. One, I don't throw in muddy weather, and the other one I just left behind. That's sometimes you have to think that way.
So a lot of great questions so far. Obviously, we're not going to be able to get through them all, but let's see if we can get one more in here from gentle listener Electra. She says, I have been an SFG1 in the past, and I can easily pass Dan's standard for women with 220s. Yes, 20s. I'm very strong, but my pull-ups suck. What plan can I follow or do to get better at pull-ups? It seems like we might have a gap here, Dan, as you identify it. So how would you
just type my name in and type in fighter pull-up program, and that's the program I always use. It's pinned on the gym wall in my house. I don't know why you don't use this SFG resources. They have the answers to everything. Sorry, sarcasm. Means a tear flash. Yeah, I would. I mean, first off, you have to ask yourself: what do you need pull-ups for? I mean, and that'd be the first question.
Also, what is suck? Like, can you already do 3 pull-ups? Because if you do 3 pull-ups, I wouldn't say that sucks.
And
right?
Of course, what 20s mean? I mean, can you press double 20s for 5? That's good. I mean, it's not. I mean, cleaning the double 20s is. I mean, I would expect that from someone who's been through a cert. What would you agree with that? A female double 20s? I mean, I know my girls can do it.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good standard. It's for somebody who's a professional who's gone through a cert, average size, to be able to clean the 2. I think at least the 216s for women, right? But I think 220s is definitely reasonably within reach as well. I think for most average size women, a set of 5 of 220s is, I think that's impressive, right? It's not. Yeah, she says yes, so she can do the set of 5 with 220s. I think that is. I don't think it should be a requirement, but I think it's
Yeah,
within the
it's in the reason.
reasonable.
Yeah,
It's within the
yeah,
realm of reason, to be sure, right?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so on pull-ups, I use the fighter program, Electric Cat, like Electric Cow, or that's where you start off. Let's say you can do 5 pull-ups. You start off on day 1, you do 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Next day you do 3, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Next day is 3, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1. 3, 3, 3, 1. And you just add a rep a day, and then after 12 straight days, you take a day off and then you test. If you do more than 5 pull-ups on that 15th, 14th day, depending on how you do the workouts, then you go to 4 for, you do it again. I like the thing about pull-ups, especially with my best female clients, is they just make a commitment to doing pull-ups, and it seems to help.
Yeah. Electra, if you email me, I have some pull-up stuff as well.
Oh,
so.
yeah.
But obviously, Dan's recommendations are always solid, and we appreciate them very, very much. So, Dan, before we wrap up here, to let us know what's happening over at Dan John University, what new and exciting things are coming down the pipeline.
Well, a new course came out for free. If you're a member, it's Fitness That Costs a Lifetime, and you're quoted in it.
Awesome.
I quote the plateau is the new PR, which I just think is delightful. A fitness professional would make fun of me, but I had it's been between the forest fires and the storm damage. It's been hard for me to train here. My hand slipped on an Olympic snatch last week. It came out, and I hit my head on the bar.
Oh, dang. Sorry to hear that, Dan.
So I'm trying my best to remember what I was talking about. But so it's fit. And so for me, at the age I'm at, if I can snatch 200 pounds again, 90 kilos, 91, 92, I mean, that's remarkable. And that's kind of where I want to head back. I mean, that's just going to be, and then establish that nice lift, and then try to get back to it next year, and then try to get back to it the next year. So it's a good program. It's free. I think it's 5 or 6 parts.
Awesome.
It's well over an hour of lectures and then just some reading. Easy Strength 2 is finished. That's the advanced easy strength stuff. And I'm really looking forward to that coming out soon. The other day I was looking over the courses in there, the goal course, the programming course, Easy Strength 1, and I'm just amazed. I know this always sounds weird when I say it. I wish I'd had these resources when I was coming up.
Indeed. Well, I mean, that's kind of what we try to do, I think, right, Dan, as coaches, I often think, like, what's something that I wish I would have had starting out or at some point along my journey? That's often sort of just an exercise I give myself when I'm trying to come up with new stuff. So I think that's super valuable. Gentle listeners, please check out all the good stuff Dan John is doing at Dan John University. If you want fun new workouts, I got this new little PDF you can get at chroniclesofstrength.com/challenge workouts. Have I given you this one yet, Dan?
No.
Yeah. You might dig it. It's just kind of like my choicest selection, if you will, of some of my kettlebell workouts that have been featured throughout the years. And it's a free little PDF if anybody likes the Pat Flynn style.
Well, that's how I met you, was when you first popped out the Dragon Gym.
Dragon Gym, yeah.
And gentle listeners, one thing you'll like about young Pat Flynn's work is he's got that nice little combination. So it's like, one thing he does really well is he reminds you every day, get a good night's sleep, start your day with protein. Here are these basic movements, do that for the next 2 weeks, 6 weeks. And then he also has the challenge stuff. So I've always liked that dynamic you play with, where you got this whole level of just do this for 8 weeks. Oh, you want something special today? Here you go. Here's a dose of a hard workout. I think there's some wisdom in there.
Well, thank you much, Dan, and appreciate, as always, the endorsement. And we appreciate everything you bring to the podcast. Always a pleasure. And see you same time next week.
Now, reminder, next week I will be in England.
Overseas.
So what we'll have to do is just figure out the time.
We'll work it out.
I'm guessing
Yeah.
it'll be about 2 in the afternoon or something like that. Okay.
We'll work it out behind scenes. Yeah, later this week. All right. So maybe time switch next week, gentle listeners. But
No.
It'll
be the same time. I'll just have to make sure I have good internet, and also today I have to figure out how much of all this I can actually get into my. I'm already packed. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm packed. I'll be. If you're in England, I'll see you this week. All right.
Awesome. Excellent, Dan. Well, safe travels, and we'll talk to you then.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.